Hello everyone, Matt from Model Minutes here, and welcome back to the workbench for another unboxing. Today I'm taking a look at this, the ICM Ghost of Kyiv MiG-29. So join me as I get stuck inside the box and see what this kit is like. So this kit was actually bought for me as a gift by my family, and the reason why they bought this was because, quote, it looks really cool, and I think that goes from the artwork that you can see on the box here. It is a slightly ghostly sort of art scheme with this fighter jet on the front. Of course, made famous by the fictional Ghost of Kyiv, which was referenced in media some years ago, defending the skies of Ukraine. Up here, top right, we have an item code of 72140, and it is 1/72nd scale. That's pretty much it. From the front, it does say it is made in Ukraine, and if we move on to the rear of the box, you can see that there's nothing here. So we will flip onto the sides. So onto the edges of the box here, we can see we have the same information that we've seen previously, but we do have some images of the paint scheme that is included, and it does make reference that this is for adult collectors aged 14 and older. The other edge of the box does have some information about this Ghost of Kyiv, about how it's, potentially a fictional person, and it does make reference to the fact that this model kit has 82 plastic parts included, as well as decals. We have an address here for ICM, and again a marking that this is 14 plus. The thin edges on the edge have the same information as we've already seen. So we'll open up the box, and when I say open up the box, I say that very loosely because what ICM do is they'll have a box like sleeve, and you'll actually just have a standard size box after that. So let's open up the standard boxes. I do quite like the standard boxes actually, because it makes it probably a bit easier for them to manufacture, and you can use these boxes. They're quite nice quality ones. So let us look at the paperwork first. That's what I normally like to do. Here we are. And I will just take the transfers out and put them to one side. So the instructions then are a glossy booklet and printed in full color. Again, we've got information about the Ghost of Kyiv at the top, and then we have our painting instructions, or our paint color callouts here. And we have our ICM colors, Revell and Tamiya annotated. And then we have a key to the different symbols that we're going to be seeing during our build. Turning over the page, we are met with a sprue map. It does indicate some of these parts are not going to be needed, which is fair enough because, there will be other boxings out there of this kit which you can do different versions of. And then we come down to our steps. There are elements of color in this, such as shading and also these different color callouts, but generally it appears to be black and white instructions at this point. Fairly straightforward, I think, in the sense that we've got a few cockpit details, we've got some wheel details to assemble for our landing gear. We install our cockpit into the upper part of the aircraft, and then the lower part is joined onto that, and then we come over to this step here. A little bit cluttered perhaps at this step. We're doing an awful lot. We're joining on our wings, canopy, small details, engine intakes, engine exhausts, and we also have different missiles that we can install as well. I would like to just point out that this has not made reference to including any nose weight. Typically, you would want to install nose weight as far forwards as possible to prevent the aircraft from falling back on its tail when it's on its wheels. It doesn't make reference to that, so it might mean that you don't need any, but it might mean they've also forgotten to tell you. So I will be putting some nose weight in anyway, just to prevent it from tail sitting. Also, no reference of a pilot figure either at the moment. If we come on down, we've got some more details to add. It looks like we install our sort of pitot tube on the nose, or pitot probe. We add our main landing gear for our sort of front bay and the two side bays here, and then also our various munitions. And that's it. Yeah, not an overly complicated looking kit. Perhaps things I would have liked to have seen would have been a crew figure to sit in the plane, and perhaps the option to raise the landing gear. Maybe a display stand wouldn't go amiss either, but in a basic sense, you've got a wheels down only option. I imagine you could go wheels up by gluing in the landing gear covers, but they may require modification. It's not explicitly instructed to us that we can raise the landing gear. Let us move on to the painting instructions then. So you only get one paint scheme in this, which is the fictional Ghost of Kyiv, and you can see that it's fairly comprehensive. I don't believe you need to paint on the camouflage scheme because there should be decals for that, which will be really handy. So generally it appears to be an upper shade of grey, another lower shade of grey, a few other bits and pieces picked out, but primarily decals. I like that they've done this in full colour because it makes life easier. Speaking of the decals then, let's have a look at these. So we've got 2 sheets, and as I was correct, we do have the majority of our camouflage here has been done using transfers. The decals look to be printed to a pretty nice quality, and the film doesn't seem to be particularly thick. I have built an ICM kit in the past, and the decals were completely acceptable to use. I didn't experience any tearing or silvering, which was really good. So yeah, this looks okay. And then we have our second sheet. So the second sheet then, what we have are a variety. We have choice in this point. So this is about personalization. So this isn't replicating anything like specifically. You can kind of make up your own paint scheme. So you've got your roundels, you've got your emblems, you've got some stencils and things, you've got a control panel here, but you see we've been given all of these numbers, so you can pick your favorite number and obviously your favorite sort of color and use it however you want. So in this case they suggested 19 and they put 19 on the tab. Just make sure you sort of follow the system. So you've got spare decals when you come to finish this, which will be pretty good. Yeah, so a little bit of free modeling with this one, which makes it a little bit more fun, I think, because you can there's no real right or wrong with that. These ones are printed again to a nice quality. However, I would just say if you are going to go with the numbers, from what I can see on the sheet here, the numbers appear to be one long decal. So the film goes all the way across all of them. So you will have to cut the individual numbers. And again here for these ones and these ones here, depending on which numbers you want specifically. So just be aware of that. You will have to cut the decal numbers out. But yeah, not bad looking there. So this then brings us on to the parts, which are in the plastic bag. So one little sprue of clear parts. We have, I presume these are like landing lights and stuff. And then we have our main canopy components. The moulding is relatively okay. The plastic is not particularly greasy. There is a little bit of flash in a few places. The framework is subtly raised. There is, however, a little bit of scuffing. I can see it on my example just across the top there, where it's probably rubbed across the bag in in storage. Maybe a little bit hard to see on the camera, but there is a slight scuff which might need a bit of a polish out. Not the clearest of plastic. It does warp the light ever so slightly, but generally not too bad. Let's look at the main sprues then. We have 1, 2, 3 dark grey plastic sprues, and the plastic is relatively dense, has a slight flex to it, and it doesn't feel particularly greasy. Maybe just a touch greasy, but nothing particularly too bad. On this sprue then, this looks like sprue A, we have our upper and lower sort of body of our aircraft. You can see that there is a reasonable amount of detail that's being replicated here. Some of the details are a little bit soft in places, like these vents around here, maybe a little bit soft. There is a tiny amount of flash in a few places too, and the sprue gates look a little bit sort of big. It looks okay, doesn't it? Perhaps maybe the molding is a little bit soft in places, and we do have like a sink mark here just at the sort of wing root, which is probably, yeah, it's linked to this. It's linked to a locating point here. Ejector pins are on this side, which means we shouldn't see them in the finished build. We do have some flash to cut out inside of our engine. Not terrible looking. I have found with some of these slightly older ICM kits is that their molding maybe isn't quite as refined as it is now, but doesn't look too bad, does it? Next one then, let's have a look at this. This has all of our weapon options on it, as well as our landing gear components. Landing gear legs, they look a little bit thin in some places. Hopefully okay, but a little bit thin. This is the same kind of deal. Molding is okay. Details are reasonably nicely reproduced. Perhaps the details are a little soft in a few places. There is a little bit of flash here and there. These missiles here, I don't know if that's intentional, but there is like a texture along this edge, which must be left over from the molding process. I wonder if that mold, or that part of the mold in particular, has a slight like roughness to it. Hopefully not too noticeable after a prime. But yeah, not too bad. Yeah, maybe just a little bit of cleaning up on the parts needed. This brings us on to the final sprue. This is sprue B, so I presume that one was sprue C. Doesn't say, unless I've missed it. On here, we have our other surfaces. We've got our tail surfaces and our wings. The wings are a single piece, which is unusual in the sense that normally you have an upper and a lower half which joins together. These are a single piece. You do have holes here pre-marked for your weapons. If you wanted to go in a clean configuration without weapons, you would have to fill those in potentially. I always prefer to drill holes out. I wonder if they've done this because obviously, as I mentioned, it's only one piece. That was the easiest way of doing it, I imagine. Control panel looks reasonably nicely detailed. There's a reasonable level of sort of dials and things on there. We have our cockpit tub with a little bit of flash, or it's like an injector pin mark in there that needs sorting out. Some nice little details on the doors there. Yeah, rivets all over that bit as well. The cockpit seat, the ejector seat, a little bit simple perhaps, but not too bad. But yeah, no pilot that I've seen, which is a little bit of a shame. But yeah, on the whole, not looking too bad, is it? Maybe not as refined as some of ICM's later releases, but still has some nice level of detail. The flash looks minimal, and there are some little bits of ejector pin that might need to be cleaned up. But yeah, not too bad. So let's wrap up. We had 1, 2, 3 dark grey plastic sprues molded to a fairly nice quality. Perhaps some of the details are a little bit soft in places, but hopefully the model builds up into a nice representation. We had our clear parts, which although acceptable, do suffer from a few blemishes in places. We also had 2 sets of decals. This set allows you to pick whatever serial number you would like to use on your plane, but you do need to cut them individually, but the printing is really quite nice. And the second sheet had our primary like digital camouflage decals on them, so you don't have to worry about masking and painting them yourself. Our painting instructions are in full color, which is absolutely fantastic because it makes things so much easier to, you know, get the right color, and the instructions are fairly straightforward to follow as well. Perhaps these could benefit from a little bit of extra color, but you know, that's just nitpicking at this point. All of which came contained within the rather cool illustrated box, which is here. Not a bad looking kit. It is a slightly older kit, maybe in the ICM range. It dates from 2008. That's when the tooling was originally created, and it has been released in a number of different boxings since then. The particular boxing that we have here is a 2022 release, and if that was one improvement point I would like to make, it is that ICM clearly annotates this information on the box. So this is a 2022 release and the tooling date of 2008. There are different versions out there that you can find of this kit, which obviously come with different paint schemes and potentially, I imagine, use the different weapons that we didn't need to use in this particular build. At the time I'm making this video, it would seem that a recommended retail price is a little bit hard to find, but from my research, it's around the £19 mark here in the UK. I imagine that you can quite typically find it cheaper, and I probably would suggest that you do look to find it a little bit cheaper than that. I'm not saying that £19 isn't necessarily a bad price. It's a reasonably large fighter jet. It does have a nice level of detail, but perhaps it is missing a few bits and pieces that we would like to see, such as a crew figure, raised landing gear option, maybe a display stand, and the fact it only technically comes with one paint scheme. I know you can mix up the paint scheme yourself and do what you want with it, but I always look for a cheaper kit. I would say maybe £16. Take a couple of pounds off of the RRP and you're in a good place for this one. I think though that's probably it for this video. It looks like a really interesting and fun build, and I'm looking forward to seeing how I can customize this particular model. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of my unboxing and whether my assessment of this kit was fair. As always, a quick shout out to my Model Club members for the extra support they give the channel. A massive thanks to these guys on screen, and if you'd like to join them, check out the links to find out how. If you would like to support the channel in other ways, there is some additional information below the video. The best way to support the channel for free though is by subscribing with notifications turned on so you never miss a modelling upload. Finally though, last thing to say is a massive thank you to you for watching this one, and I'll catch you on the workbench again next time.